One band, four musicians, and two albums that would change the course of rock and roll history forever. In 1968, Black Sabbath was formed in Birmingham, England. Guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, drummer Bill Ward, and vocalist Ozzy Osbourne would make an evolutionary step in music history that would pioneer the genre now known as heavy metal. Since the inception of this genre, bands emerged from all over the world that would serve to both emulate and evolve the sound pioneered by Sabbath, discovering new styles and subgenres, each more and more extreme than the last. But no matter how guttural the sound becomes, the Sabbath sound remains the quintessential heavy sound. Whether they like it or not, every metal band ever assembled owes their career to Black Sabbath. They changed the game like no other artist before them. But while the group are constantly praised for their innovation and emotive soundscape, one aspect of their craft that I feel does not nearly get the credit it deserves is their lyrical content. You see, like any other genre of music, metal is known for featuring overused lyrical themes and motifs which are now considered to be stereotypical of the genre. Said themes include the occult, war and violence, religion, drug and alcohol usage, political commentary and socially conscious themes such as anxiety, anger and depression, societal taboos frowned upon by the common man and woman, topics which would not dare be discussed in public places amongst a crowd of optimists, and if it is, expect nothing but backlash and controversy. Pop music wouldn't have the stones. Only metal is brave enough to tackle such sensitivity. And what is essential to keep in mind is that Black Sabbath is the band responsible for all of it. Metal was moulded by Sabbath lyrically as well as sonically. The primary lyricist for the group is bassist Geezer Butler, who often incorporated all the themes I've just listed, as well as vivid pictures detailed from his own life experiences. In fact, a good majority of Sabbath's most personal tracks are thoughts and feelings derived from Butler's experiences as a survivor of the Blitz during the Second World War. It was the horrors witnessed by Butler as a child which shaped many of the mental and emotional challenges he would experience growing up. And there was no better way to emote these challenges than through songwriting. Take Paranoid for example, the title track from the group's seminal album of the same name. The song explores the themes of paranoia and depression stemming from, as stated before, personal experiences and, as some sources suggest, drug use. The song's lyrics, written by Butler, capture the feeling of being overwhelmed by negative thoughts and struggling to connect with others. Butler himself described the song as reflecting a crossover between the paranoia experienced while under the influence of drugs and the subsequent depression. Although dark in subject matter, the casual listener would not initially think that after hearing the badass opening riff leading to the fast-paced and upbeat tempo of the song. And this is something Black Sabbath does astoundingly well, using the music itself to emote the feelings described by the lyrics, whether that is to emote said feelings directly or by creating a contrast, which in actuality might be even more disturbing upon peeking beneath the surface. There is no greater case of Sabbath's music conveying the themes of the lyrics than with Iron Man. Iron Man tells the story of a man who travels to the future, witnesses an apocalypse, and returns to warn humanity, only to be transformed into a metal being by a magnetic field. Ridiculed and ignored, he ultimately seeks revenge and brings about the very apocalypse he had foreseen. And no, the song is not directly connected to the Marvel character. Here we see one of the earliest examples of Butler's writing applying science fiction and apocalyptic themes which would go on to be associated with metal lyrics for the rest of time. And sonically, the song stays faithful to these themes. The riff is bloated and heavy, the pace of the song is slow and clunky, exactly how a man made of metal should walk and feel. Add on to that the robotic voiceover by Ozzy in the intro, and you have not only an interesting story being told, but a song which tells that story masterfully through the musicianship on display. But aside from the genre-based and personal themes Sabbath convey through their music, the band is also one which has never once been afraid of getting political. War Pigs is a powerful anti-war song that critiques the instigators of conflict, particularly those in positions of power. It condemns the manipulation and exploitation of the working class by wealthy elites who profit from war while others suffer and die. And while the message of the track itself is grounded in the reality of political frustration, Geezer Butler doesn't mind throwing in some fantastical metaphors to keep in line with the already established themes. The lyrics of War Pigs at one point compare military leaders to witches at black masses, suggesting that they are evil and are plotting destruction. The slow, methodical opening features raging sirens in the background, harkening back to the London Blitz of the Second World War. It is events like these that are exactly what make politicians the money they have. It is the exact point that Sabbath are trying to convey through this song. And what is an even bigger detail that suggests a doomed outcome? The ending, where the fast-paced and groovy instrumental is suddenly rushed to a halt, like mechanical machinery breaking down at a breakneck pace. Because if the figures in power will not abandon their greedy ways of profiteering, then the entire establishment as we know it will break down and crash. Sabbath makes their political statement abundantly clear through this song, and that's not all. On their 1971 follow-up to Paranoid, Master of Reality, they tackle the subject yet again. Children of the Grave is a song with strong anti-war and anti-establishment themes. It urges the youth to stand up against the corrupt world and fight for peace and love, suggesting that if they don't, they will become children of the grave. Here is yet another example of Sabbath applying important, socially critical messaging to a song which, upon the surface, is just another head-banging anthem. The contrast between the music and the lyrics is on full display once more. Now for my final points of the video. Let's discuss one final theme reoccurring throughout Sabbath's discography, and the theme that has perhaps garnered the four-piece the most controversy across their career: Satanism and the occult. In their 1970 debut record, the self-titled Black Sabbath is the self-titled song Black Sabbath, a track that is undoubtedly about the occult, as evident through both the lyrics and the mood of the song. It is eerie, sinister, horrifying to listen to, and is perhaps the track that both created and defined heavy metal for the rest of eternity, and is also by far the most overrated song by the band. I personally do not like this song. I try and never critique a classic rock song for being too dated, because it is sensible to understand the context and the time of a track's release. The reason the production doesn't hold up compared to today's standards is because that was the sound typical of the period. That was the contemporary sound of the period. But with the song Black Sabbath, it really pushes the line a bit too over the edge for me, both with how unmotivated the production is and with how bombastically over the top it tries to convey its themes. Sabbath usually conveys the themes really well musically, but this is one of the rare examples where it simply does not work for me. But that is not the song on the self-titled record I want to talk about. It is actually the other song on this album detailing similarly evil motifs, NIB. NIB is about the devil falling in love and undergoing a transformation to become a good person. The song is sung from the perspective of Lucifer, who is expressing his love for a woman and promising her his power. Yeah, things become weird on this album very quickly. However, since this song is about the purest form of evil attempting to redeem himself of his evil character, it instantly makes up for its provocative content by portraying a message that is hopeful and optimistic. And the instrumental is no different. A badass main riff, followed eventually by an epic, grandiose solo courtesy of Tony Iommi, conveying the battle between good and evil and the internal struggles of the satanic protagonist. And this track is maybe the Sabbath song which fascinates me the most, because while the band themselves are often panned by mainstream media and critics of heavy music for being satanic, and occultist sympathisers blamed consistently for deaths of young people who listen to their music, Sabbath is actually not that at all. While their lyrical content may feature evil themes, not once have they ever proclaimed themselves to be practitioners of black magic, Satanism, or anything of the sort. In fact, the truth of their spiritual beliefs may shock those that have condemned them. Ozzy Osbourne has come out on numerous occasions and stated the exact position his spirituality lies. When the occasion arises where he is asked whether or not his band is satanic, he always rejects said beliefs. As Ozzy once stated during an interview, "I'm a Christian. I was christened as a Christian. I used to go to Sunday school." It is also reported that during the final weeks of Ozzy's life, that the frontman had grown closer to God more than he had ever done before, making peace with the Lord and repenting every sinful action he had committed across his wild life as a drug-fueled rock star. With Osbourne's true spiritual beliefs in mind, it just goes to show how much of a contrast can be made between the perception and content of an artist's music compared to their true beliefs and spirituality. And while Black Sabbath themselves have covered numerous subjects and motifs within their lyricism and songwriting, nothing can take away from the fact that, while their music may be unfairly branded as satanic by a large number of critics, the root of their imagination has always stemmed from a place that is well-intentioned and used merely to express the nature of such taboo subjects, not to glorify them. And that is in my mind the one thing that non-metal listeners misinterpret about the band and the genre as a whole. It is not intended to cause death among the listeners. That is a misinterpretation and a choice made by the listener themselves. The artist's only goal in mind was to show their creativity, and Black Sabbath was the first, and to this day one of the best bands to do so in glorious fashion.